guys. Welcome back to another exciting episode on the show, Control or Be Controlled, a podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And I remain your host, Darlington. Today's guest is Lin Green, an award-winning community advocate, columnist, author, speaker, and business and non-profit consultant. Lin's work focuses on helping individuals, organizations, and communities transform adversity into growth by breaking generational cycles, strengthening mindsets, and building lives rooted in faith, intention, and purpose. Our journey is deeply personal. In our memoir, Enough with the Secrets, Mama, Lynn shares a powerful story of navigating a complicated mother-daughter relationship, cultural expectations, family struggles, forgiveness, and the courage it takes to break patterns that have been passed down through generations. Lynn, welcome to Control or Be Controlled.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed that introduction.
I did. It was perfect. Thank you.
All right, so I have some questions there for you. Your memoir, Enough with the Secrets, Mama, is deeply very, very personal. I mean, tell us what inspired you to finally share this personal story with the world.
Yeah, so it was really something that came to me. It seems the more I have been in touch with women, especially in the community, with the work that I do in advocacy and with the work that I do in business, that I kept having these similar conversations where some way or another we were led to discussing our maternal relationships and how those things affected us. So the more I was having those conversations, the more I realized that that is exactly what God was leading me to write about. Because for a while, I knew that I wanted to put out a special writing project. I knew that I wanted to put out a book. But for me, it had to be meaningful and it had to be intentional. And so the message just came to me through my own healing work. And because I knew it was time for others to feel free and have that sense of, peace and be able to overcome the challenges that come with having a difficult maternal relationship.
All right, so can you share with us as well? You describe your book as parts memoir, parts self-help, and parts please tell me I'm not the only one. Wow. Why do you think so many people connect with stories about complicated family relationships? Do you think it's because a lot of people have complicated family relationships?
Yeah, I think that people are finally starting to realize that part of their identity has been because of the complicated relationships they've had growing up. And I'm sure it's not in every family, but the more that I talk to people, especially in business and in the community as they're dealing with their own hardships, that's the very first place we go is to the root of our upbringing, of our development, because we are who we become partly because of where we've come from, right? So for me, it was important to share the stories, not just of the hardships that I had growing up and that difficulty in the relationship, but more so the understanding of how we got there. And that meant kind of diving in a little bit into my mother's history. And then also knowing that me saying enough wasn't me giving up. It was just me finally deciding that my peace and my health and my healing mattered too. So writing the memoir was capturing all of that in a book in a moment where maybe I could have used a book like this to help me get through the difficult things that I was going through at the time and throughout my life, because it was all about breaking generational cycles, even especially as I became a mother, the ways that I had to set boundaries and how I had to choose grace over guilt.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Lynn. So, you grew up in an immigrant family, and this often comes with unique expectations and challenges. So, how did your cultural background shape your relationship with family, identity, and success?
So, and I get this question a lot, obviously, because the type part of, or the subtitle of the book speaks of an immigrant woman's story. And obviously that's in there because that's exactly what it is. But I know so many people who are not migrants to, a country who can relate to the same story. However, you said it perfectly in your question at the very top. You said, my cultural background did in some way affect the ways that I was able to handle relationships, especially parental relationships, because in many of those within the Caribbean culture, and I would say I get this a lot from Black families, that you have to be seen and not heard. You can have an opinion, but you can't express that opinion. You have to respect your elders first and foremost. And that may not be something that a lot of people can relate to, in that I know that there are families that are a little bit more fluid and more understanding of the child's development. And nowadays, it's the term that's been coined, gentle parenting. We didn't have that. We did not have gentle parenting. And so it was important for me to express what that cultural experience was like for me, and how in so many ways that shaped who I became.
All right, thank you, Lynn. So, I want to know, can you tell me, this is a very good question that a lot of people ask, but there is no one particular answer. What does it mean to break generational cycles? And how can someone recognize patterns that they may have inherited? Please, I want answers, an answer that's probably very easier for people to comprehend.
Yeah, so generational cycles, or some people call them generational curses. I don't like to call it a curse because it can be a good and a bad thing, right? It really is basically understanding that the way that you have been raised in so many ways was impacted by the woman and man, or woman alone, who raised your mother and father. And so their way that they became was impacted by the way that they were raised by their mother and father. And so we talk about generations of people that came before us that in so many ways impacted how everything fell further down the line, in terms of beliefs, in terms of parenting, in terms of values, and all of these things that become important in a familial structure, and get passed down ultimately. So a lot of those things are great things. Like, I can think of amazing things within my culture and within my upbringing that have been generationally passed down. Those things help me feel more proud about my culture, feel more proud about myself and my family. But then there are things that were really tough, and you get to see how, in so many ways, the way that, for instance, in my family, the way that my mother was raised, the relationship she had with her mother wasn't as strong. And so having learned that, it makes me better understand why we didn't have maybe as strong of a relationship. Now, that's not to say that it's the same in every family. Every family goes through different upbringings, and obviously there are going to be some parents who are the cycle breakers. Like I would consider myself a cycle breaker within my family as it relates to raising my son, because I learned from seeing the generations before me what was not going to serve me and my child and my family moving forward.
All right. Are you saying that generational causes are patterns and habits?
I'm sorry, did you finish your question?
Yes, I said, do you mean that generational causes are just habits that we have inherited that do not serve us, like the habits that we have inherited from our parents that are not serving us properly?
Yes, I would say partly they are habits. It can also be beliefs and things that are passed down, like certain practices and in ways that we raise our children or ways that we are, and we think that's how you're supposed to be as a parent, and how you end up passing that down to your children. So what ends up happening is a lot of times us as kids don't know any different. If this is what we've seen from our parents and their parents before them, this is what we think is the norm. But what I think we're currently in a culture of people who are more wise, and I'll use the word woke here. We're a bit more woke, and we understand that a lot of the ways that we were raised maybe weren't conducive to us specifically. I've learned that also as a parent, that the way I am, albeit changed, is not necessarily how I should expect my son to be. As far as, the personality and the ways that he should go about things, because he is his own person. Now, I don't think my parents ever even had that thought. It's just, you are my child. I am going to raise you. I put food on the table, a roof over your head. I clothe you. You do as I say. You go to school and get a degree and get a job, get a family, and move on, in that order. Not that we had too much choice in between. So that has been my story. And I have found that many people can relate to it, because in so many ways you learn that what I call the secrets or the things that our parents keep from us that keep us from better understanding them as children, they don't protect us. They often imprison us. And so they make us feel like we don't have that freedom to grow, to be ourselves, to explore, different, maybe different careers or different aptitudes. We start to consider that, helping others makes us feel less alone because it's what we're used to. So yeah, those are the overall reasons why I wrote the memoir. And ultimately, as far as generational cycles are concerned, I think that is the biggest idea.
All right, Lynn, thank you. So the story involves a strong-willed mother. What did that relationship teach you about yourself that you never knew?
Well, for sure, in so many ways, it made me feel like I didn't have much of a choice. It made me feel stuck in that I felt that my identity was tied to serving others and making others happy. So for instance, we talk a lot about people pleasing, and a lot of us have that attitude where we feel like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place sometimes when it comes to making a decision, because we think more about what other people are going to think and say and do as opposed to how it's going to benefit us. So that is one of the things that really that impacted me through my healing. I had to unlearn that my worth wasn't tied to how much I could carry, that it wasn't tied to my responsibility and or recognition or achievements. I had to unlearn a lot of those habits that I developed by overworking, by, caregiving, and oftentimes not setting boundaries. Those were things that were very important in making a choice for my own healing and in order to live a life that was going to be fruitful.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. So, uh, what have you learned about leadership from helping people and helping organizations navigate adversity?
Well, I've certainly learned that a lot of people have aspirations that maybe they believe were put on them and not so much things that they for sure knew that they were passionate about. I've seen a lot of people get into business or start a project and they do it more so for the sake of their family or for the sake of, how this will look to the people around them, without really looking at what it is that they want and they want to accomplish. So we hear a lot, especially in business, what is your why? Why are you doing this? And your why can't just be, I want to be successful. I want to, become a millionaire. It has to come from a deeper place, because it's not going to be substantial and it's not going to be long lasting unless it's something you're truly passionate about. And so what I realized is that a lot of people see trends or see things happening and see other people being successful, and they may look at it and say, okay, I may be able to accomplish the same thing. Why don't I try that? Not knowing that the root reason why they're doing that is really just because they are going with the flow without fully acknowledging that maybe this isn't something that they're truly passionate about. Maybe being successful is something that they're passionate about. But I think ultimately you have to understand at the core what it is that drives you in order for you to have a successful business, in order for you to live a successful life, and create a plan based on that. I think people are far stronger than they believe they are. I think sometimes even discussing that gets a little too heavy for some people. Within our consulting business, we have those conversations because oftentimes when we get called in to provide an evaluation or assessment of an organization or a business, that is one of the top things that we ask. And so it's important to remind people that they're not alone in that thought process. We're all human. We've all come from different backgrounds. We all have challenges and we all have things that maybe we're not so confident about. But it's about addressing those things and giving hope and giving courage and in some way making them resilient so that they can take on these major projects.
All right. So the remote and hybrid work have changed the workplace. Okay, sorry about that. For someone who feels trapped by their past or their family history, what is the first step towards creating a different future?
Sounds like you broke up a little. Can you repeat the question?
For someone who feels trapped by their past and family history, what is the first step towards creating a different value, a different future?
Can you repeat the last part? I'm sorry. What is the...
For someone who feels trapped by their past or their family history, tell us the first thing they can do to begin creating a different future, to create a different future.
Yeah, so a very first thing that you should do to create a different future for yourself, regardless of what your family history is, but especially if you're struggling with that, is to just have honest conversation with yourself. to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what things are bothering me about myself, about my family, about my situation. Be very honest about your insecurities and looking at yourself in a way as to not so much criticize yourself, but understanding where these thoughts and feelings are coming from. I think being self-aware is the most important part of this process, because once you're aware of yourself and you're sure of yourself, this breeds confidence, and confidence can get you anywhere. But confidence and understanding of your own identity would get you even further, because it makes you more compassionate. It makes you more likely to ask for help and then give others the opportunity to do so. And it's just one small step. This is hard enough just trying to come to terms with yourself, then to consider to have this conversation with others. So I think it's important to do all this work within yourself, really sit in the deep parts of the discomfort, because that's where growth happens. And know that progress is not perfection. Progress means a little at a time. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but you're still making 1 step forward. And so I think sometimes we're harder on ourselves than we need to be. But I also think that sometimes we're not as honest with ourselves as we need to be.
All right. So, uh, what message do you hope readers will take away after finishing Enough with the Secrets, Mama?
Overall, I'd say this. For me, the overall message in my life and in life in general, but specifically as it relates to my memoir, is that taking control begins with taking responsibility for the life that we've been given. It may not be the best life, but we know that healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming the person that God created you to be. So know that healing isn't the finish line. It's only the foundation that you set to continue to improve and do better in life. Success isn't the success without peace isn't success. So understanding that in order to find that joy in success, you have to be at peace with yourself. And I want people to build lives that they don't have to recover from. Ultimately, for me, it's all about choice. And we know that we cannot always control what happens to us, but we can choose what happens next.
All right. Thank you so much, Lynn. This has been a very exciting episode. Thank you for sharing such an honest and meaningful conversation about family, healing, and personal transformation. The story reminds us that while we may inherit experiences, beliefs, and patterns from the generations before us, we also have the ability to choose what we carry forward and what we leave behind. Through courage, forgiveness, and intentional action, our stories can become sources of strength, not just for ourselves, but for the people who come after us. So, for those that would like to connect with you and get your book, Enough with the Secret Mama, and your work with individuals, organizations, and communities, how can they do that?
Who want to connect with me professionally, I am on LinkedIn. My name is Lin Green. That's Lin Green, like the color. All of my inspirational work through my inspirational platform is called Issa Lifestyle, which is it's my social media platform. It's ISSALIVE style. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook on there. And then by way of our consulting business, should you need any guidance in that area, you can reach us at greenconsultingofficial.com.
All right, thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you to all my audience. You guys are the real reason why we are able to do this always. Thank you all so much. Make sure to check out our works and check out our book. And make sure, I know a lot of us, we want to break generational patterns. And she has given us a little bit of blueprint on how to do that. Check out our work and make sure you're able to also decide how you want to live and live away from generational habits. Thank you so much, Lynn, and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you.
All right, Lynn. So,